My wife threatened to accuse me of abuse when I found out about her infidelity. Therefore, I installed cameras that exposed her lies and ensured my victory in the divorce. A few days ago, my children found a small rabbit and brought it home. They begged us to keep it, but we couldn't keep a wild rabbit, and we already had enough pets. The rabbit was old enough to survive on its own, so I gently explained to the children that the rabbit needed to be returned home to its family. The children were upset but agreed to take it back. However, I was busy with work and couldn't go with them, so my wife went instead. I told her to release the rabbit into the bushes at the edge of the property, as it was the safest place. We live in a rural area full of predators. I returned to work, but after some time, my children came running home in tears. Their mother was following them, trying to calm them and assuring them that everything was not so bad. I asked what happened, and my eldest child said that Mom forced them to release the rabbit in the middle of the yard and a hawk took it away. They even described how the rabbit was screaming. I was shocked, then became angry with my wife for not doing as I had asked. She defended herself by saying, "It's just a rabbit. The children will forget about it." But I said it was completely wrong. I had warned about predators. Now our children witnessed a poor rabbit being taken by a hawk. Both children locked themselves in their rooms and refused to talk to their mother for several days. When she tried to talk to them, they called her the rabbit killer. I tried to mediate, but the children were still angry, and I was also angry with my wife about how everything turned out. She was angry with me for not supporting her, saying that husband and wife should always support each other. We argued, and I pointed out numerous instances when she did not support me. She began to cry and went to our room to sulk. Now I think it might be my fault. A friend advised me to ask if I was wrong here. First correction. Yes, I understand that hawks also need to eat, and there are plenty of them in our area. I just didn't want my little children, aged 4 and 5, to see this. I grew up in a rural area, and my wife is a city girl. When I was a child, in such situations, we tried to release wild animals in places where they had some chance to survive. Second correction. I did not yell at my wife. Where exactly in my post did I say that I did? Yes, I reprimanded her, but I did not yell, even when we later argued. We whispered so the children wouldn't hear us. I couldn't go with them to release the rabbit because I was busy with work. I work from home half the week and need to be available to answer calls during work hours, except during mandatory breaks. Also, I never called my wife by the nicknames the children gave her after the rabbit incident. I even tried to make them stop. I am not going to call her that. It's humiliating and I would look like a tyrant. Third correction. My children were not playing in the yard unsupervised. My wife, a homemaker, was with them when they found the rabbit. They ran into the house with it, and I had to explain that it needed to be released. Fourth correction. I can't believe I have to make another update, but people keep focusing on this. Hawks are constantly hunting small animals. My property is almost entirely flat land, except for the house and one tree. I have half a hectare of land. The lawn was last mowed on Sunday, so the grass was quite short. The poor rabbit, like a target, attracted the attention of a predator, as hawks constantly circle this area. Since childhood, I have fought hawks, protecting my chickens with my old air rifle. Small rabbits are one of their favorite prey. That's why I told my wife to release the rabbit into the bushes. Fifth correction. People who write that hawks also need to eat or it's part of the food chain, or that I am wrong for interfering with nature and natural selection, have really annoyed me. When I was a child, I had to protect domestic birds and animals from hawks. For my grandparents, who were farmers, they had the right to protect their animals from predators. We were not going to just allow hawks to take all the chickens. They would do so daily. Yes, I went out with an air rifle, but mostly to scare them away. I never shot any of them. Yes, I have hit hawks a couple of times, but barely. I have not shot at hawks in 25 years. I have never liked shooting living creatures. Update. For those who remember, I am the one whose wife made our children release a wild rabbit in the middle of the yard. Despite my advice to take it to the bushes to release it into a safer place, a hawk grabbed the rabbit right in front of our children when they were 4 and 5 years old. They staged a scene with their mother, then came running to me in tears. After that, our children started calling their mother the Rabbit Killer. Now this nickname seems even more localized because other people also started calling her that when her infidelity was exposed. Everything that happened with that poor rabbit is an old story compared to what I want to tell now. I am already a free man. Looking back, the story will be quite long and complicated, so buckle up. I showed my wife my post about the rabbit story. She was furious to the point that it led to a major fight. After that, she ignored me for a week and did not talk to me. I tried to get the children to stop mistreating their mother after the rabbit incident, even applying minor punishments like depriving them of certain privileges and temporary bans, but the nickname, Rabbit Killer, persisted. Every time the children got angry at their mother, after a couple of weeks, my wife softened and admitted that she should have listened to me about the rabbit and released it into the bushes as I advised. She explained that at that time she just wanted to protect herself from looking wrong. I accepted her apologies and apologized myself for writing the post about her on the internet. I suggested she go to family psychotherapy, but she refused. She acted as if everything was fine in our marriage, and I decided not to insist since everything seemed to have improved outwardly. However, a few weeks later, my eldest daughter came to me and said she wanted to tell me something. There was another reason why she was so angry with her mother, and it wasn't only because of the rabbit. She had been afraid to say it earlier. I calmed her down and told her she could tell me anything. What I heard shocked me and instantly changed everything. My daughter revealed that for several months, on Saturdays when I was at work, her mother would bring home a man and call him her special friend. She made the children keep it a secret from me in various ways, including bribery. But my eldest realized that it was wrong and mustered the courage to tell me. Children actually notice everything and very quickly pick up on oddities. I noticed that my wife had recently been acting differently. She was more harsh with everyone, especially the children. I tried to talk to her about it when I showed her my first post, but she lashed out at me with accusations on any occasion she could think of, insulting my appearance, character, habits, and even my relatives. She even recalled events from over 10 years ago. Then she closed the door to our bedroom in front of me and started crying so loudly that her cries were heard throughout the house. When my eldest daughter came to me with her confession, I put 2 and 2 together. My wife was cheating, and her behavior very much resembled the mood swings she had during our children's pregnancies. But even worse, from what I found out by reading information on the internet and talking with friends and even a psychologist, my wife was in such a state due to hormones and guilt over the affair. I am not a psychology expert, but it sounded logical. I really hoped it was a misunderstanding, but I quickly ordered and installed several hidden cameras so that no one would know. I asked them to be delivered to her workplace so that none of the household would see them. Then I installed the cameras on the day my wife went to her bachelorette party with friends. They were very easy to connect and synchronize via Wi-Fi. In just a few hours, I was able to set up surveillance on every corner of the house through my computer and laptop. At first, I was worried I was overstepping. I thought if it turned out I was wrong, I would just remove the cameras and no one would know. But no, my worst fears were confirmed. In the first week, I obtained enough evidence. The man my wife chose as her lover turned out to be her former colleague. I remembered him well because they seemed close when I met him at various events. My wife quit her job a few years ago to take care of the children when she became pregnant with our first child. At that time, it was our mutual decision. She kept in touch with her former colleagues as they were her best friends, but now it was no longer the case. Now she had become the object of hatred for everyone. First of all, the lover is about 10 years younger than my wife. She was training him at work to take her place after her departure. We are both over 40, but judging by my wife's appearance, you wouldn't know it. She looks stunning and is often mistaken for a woman in her early 20s. I think she used this to her advantage. I shared what was happening with my sister and showed her the camera footage. My sister said she had suspected this for some time. She said that once she saw my wife in a local bar where she was too close with a man. They weren't kissing, but there was a lot of touching on the shoulders and lower back. Since my sister had no evidence, she hadn't told me earlier. I also ordered a GPS tracker, which I hid in my wife's car trunk. My sister and her husband agreed to help me and followed my wife's movements during her next supposed evening with friends. She went to a completely different place, 30 kilometers away from where she usually went, and there she met her lover. My sister and her husband watched them from the car for a while. They noticed that her lover was constantly stroking her stomach while they were talking. They recorded this on video. When I saw the footage, I realized she must be pregnant by him, as her mood swings at home were getting stronger. My sister and her husband tried to calm me down, because I was completely thrown off. I wanted to drown my sorrows in alcohol, but my sister rightly said that it was the worst thing I could do at that moment. Later, I decided to take a vacation from work but told my wife I was going on a business trip. Her joy was so evident that she didn't even try to hide how happy she was that I would be away for some time. This woman is definitely not the one I married almost 20 years ago. Maybe her doppelganger or clone just took her place. Is she an alien? Did I ever really know her? The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. In the end, I decided that trying to find an explanation was useless. The cameras were installed all over the house. My sister and her husband agreed to take my children for a few days because they love visiting their aunt and uncle in the city. This gave my wife the opportunity she had been waiting for. She called her lover just a few hours after my departure. He came in the evening and stayed overnight. I won't go into details about what they did at our house. You can guess. But on top of that, they kept making jokes about me. They openly discussed their child and said they needed to decide what to do. While her stomach wasn't noticeable yet, she was already 3 months along, and she couldn't pass off the child as mine. Her partner was of another race. So from birth, it would be clear the child wasn't mine. My wife dismissed her fears and said they had a few more months to resolve everything. Then, shamelessly, she admitted that this wasn't even her first affair. At 29, she had slept with another man. She told her partner that she was tired of playing the role of a good wife and being around a suffocating person like me because I made her feel old. If it weren't for my financial stability, she would have left me long ago. Even her partner asked what she planned to do with the children. Her exact words were, "Let them stay with him." She no longer wanted to be around our children because she thought they loved me more, and she would soon have a new child. I almost threw my laptop on the floor in the hotel room because I was so shocked, but I pulled myself together, drank a couple of beers, had dinner at a diner, and then watched a movie. After that, I lay in bed until midnight, thinking, before finally falling asleep. I thought I knew my wife so well. I loved her and was ready to give her everything I had, but in the end, some people are just disgusting, and you never know who they are until they show their true face. I firmly decided then to destroy her in the divorce. Usually, I am a kind and calm person, but if you make me angry enough, I can become your worst nightmare. The next day, I went to a law firm specializing in divorces, and asked for the toughest lawyer they had. I live in a state where fault for infidelity plays a key role. So my wife was at a disadvantage from the moment I obtained the recordings of her affair. At first, the lawyer doubted that I wanted to hire him so quickly, but I explained the situation in more detail. I even showed him part of the video recordings, and then a devilish smile appeared on his face, and we shook hands. He said he would start right away because divorce lawyers love such crushing cases the most. A few weeks later, I arranged the delivery of divorce papers to my wife. This happened on a day when I was working from home, and the children were in kindergarten. I handed the papers directly into her hands. The cameras recorded everything. She looked frightened when she opened the envelope, read its contents, and immediately lost her composure. She burst into my office screaming, but I remained completely calm and composed. I was already fully mentally prepared for the end of our marriage. My wife tried to start a fight. I simply told her that I had made the final decision and wanted her to leave my house. I had always been the only one paying the mortgage. She yelled that I couldn't treat her like that, then threatened to tell everyone that I had beaten her if I took the case to court and to ensure my dismissal. I said she could make up any lie she wanted. It wouldn't help her since she was pregnant by her lover. She widened her eyes and asked, "What exactly do you know?" I simply replied that I knew enough and again said that I wanted her to leave. She refused and claimed that the house belongs to her as much as to me. Then she closed herself in the bedroom again. Through the cameras in the bedroom, I saw her have a nervous breakdown, and then she took out her phone and called the police. She pretended to be in complete horror, but there was a huge smile on her face while doing so. She turned out to be a wonderful actress. If I didn't know she was lying, I would have believed her words over the phone without a doubt. I waited for the police to arrive, leaving the front door open and telling her they could come in. They were initially quite aggressive, expecting something serious to start now, but the house was in perfect order with no signs of a struggle. My wife ran out of the bedroom, grabbed one of the officer's vests, crying and saying, "I'm crazy." I turned to another officer, asking him to let me show evidence of what had really happened. He agreed, as he clearly caught my wife off guard since she didn't know I was recording her. I showed the officer the video recording from the cameras on my laptop where my wife said she was going to make everything up to ruin my life. Then I showed a recording from the living room where you can see her running out of my office and heading to the bedroom. After that, I demonstrated footage from the bedroom where she calls the police and lies. Everything was recorded from several angles. Despite her claims to the police that I had beaten her, there were no marks on her, and the camera recordings throughout the house completely refuted her. I handed the police a flash drive and said it contained all the necessary evidence of her false call. Even after that, my wife continued to claim that I had beaten her and tried to say that the recordings were illegal and therefore could not be accepted as evidence. But I pointed out that the recordings were entirely legal since they were surveillance cameras installed inside my house, not in public places. My wife looked at the police officers and demanded that they do something. They did, handcuffing her. She began to cry like a child. I could only sit and shake my head. This was the same woman I loved. For so many years, I thought she was smart, kind, and charming, but how wrong I was. When the police took her away, she screamed that they had no right to treat her like that, but she did not resist much. Otherwise, her accusations would have included more resistance to the arrest. After that, I blocked all her credit cards that were in my name and stopped any payments to our joint bank account. Thus, she had to use only her own savings to put down a bond and get out of jail. She had saved enough over the years while working. Although I had always been the only one paying the mortgage, so she was not in the red. The next day after her release from jail, her parents came to talk to me. At first, they only had a distorted version of events that my wife had told them, practically the same as what she had told the police. Her father, despite being an older, large, and strong man, was ready to almost throw himself at me, but I asked him if he knew anything about his daughter's affair or her pregnancy. He looked very surprised and gave me a chance to explain. I took out my laptop again and showed the recordings. When they saw the truth, they were filled with disgust. They said they couldn't believe that this woman was their daughter. They apologized to me and promised to keep in touch to help me with the children. Then, they called my wife on speakerphone right in front of me and scolded her for lying. She tried to defend herself, but they said they were with me right now, had seen all the recordings, and knew the whole truth. They demanded that she immediately leave their house. My wife tried to defend herself, but her parents said they had not raised her to be such an egotistical, depraved creature who would try to frame her own husband, and added that she was no longer their daughter. They cut off all relations with her over the phone and then hung up, not letting her say a word more. She tried to call them back, but they ignored all her attempts. When they returned home, she was no longer there, but she had managed to destroy several things in their house, which made my mother-in-law cry. I still consider my ex-wife's parents as my relatives because they continue to visit their grandchildren, but my ex-wife is effectively dead to all of us. Later, my wife returned with her lover to take back her belongings. He didn't even enter the house, and she didn't say a word to me while packing her things. She knew the cameras were everywhere, and if she had done anything else, it would have only worsened her situation. I was not alone. My sister and her husband helped me monitor what was happening. My sister's husband watched my wife's lover from the window. My wife was still packing things when the children came home. She didn't even try to talk to them, even when our youngest child cried. Before leaving, she tore a few wedding photos off the wall and threw them on the floor. I think she was expecting a reaction from me based on how she looked at me at that moment, but since I didn't say anything, she just took her things and left. After she left, I had to ask my elderly mother to live with me because I couldn't handle the children alone. I had no option to take many days off, and the options with daycare were limited. I also ordered DNA tests for the children. I was sure they were mine, but a few people said I needed to be sure just in case. Luckily, both children were indeed mine. I also did STI tests, and thank God everything was clean. About a week later, my wife appeared at my doorstep again, saying she agreed to an amicable divorce. This meant she would get half of everything if I agreed. I told her straight, no. An argument ensued, and she, one way or another, admitted that she understood the laws of our state were not on her side. We met, got engaged, married, and lived our entire lives in this state. She had no way to avoid significant losses unless I agreed to her terms. And I did not agree. I told her that she had betrayed me, our children, her parents, and almost everyone else by cheating on me. Then I slammed the door in her face. She quietly left, and I didn't see her again. Several months later, at the divorce proceedings, my wife was already noticeably pregnant. She hired a lawyer, but her lover was nowhere to be seen. I expected her to lie to the judge, and she tried to do so several times, but I had enough video evidence to refute any lies, so she had no chance. Then she tried to drag out the process, refusing to cooperate and making various demands. She wanted most of my savings, a long list of items I owned, and for me to buy her half of the house, although she had never contributed to it from her side. I obtained full custody of the children and removed her name from the house ownership documents. I had video evidence that she didn't care for our children and was ready to make up lies. She tried to prolong the process by constantly changing her demands, but the judge did not allow her to continue. Since in our state, fault for infidelity plays a key role, she had little right to anything being the guilty party. Her attempt to frame me only worsened her situation. she lost custody of our children. She only received a financial payout of $60,000, and the car I had previously bought for her, worth $50,000, 2 years ago. Initially, the judge offered my ex partial custody of the children, but after seeing the video recording where she said she didn't care about our children, she relinquished any rights to them when she realized she couldn't achieve anything. And for those who think the police wouldn't have arrested my ex for lying, think again. Police are no joke. My ex, with a maniacal smile, tried to accuse me of raising my hand against her, and that was a sufficient reason for arrest. Be sure to write in the comments what you think about this complicated story. I'm most interested to see if you saw the connection between the first half and the second, between the rabbit and the affair, because in my opinion, there was absolutely no connection. But those commentators who wrote about it, that's funny, of course. Anyway, I'm waiting for your comments. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Watch our previous video, which you can see here, and good luck.